The scent of burning pine clings to the air. The fire pops in the stone hearth, and heat from a mug of coffee warms the hands, but never quite reaches what sits behind the eyes. Listen, brothers. Walking away from the battlefield does not mean the war is over. Some nights, silence is scarier than gunfire. The so-called safe zone is often just a pretty label we slap on a place so we can pretend the ghosts stayed behind. Then the breach comes. Not in a back alley, not in a firefight, right in the middle of a Savannah engagement party, under crystal light and polished smiles. A bruise hidden under a glove. A laugh aimed at a limping man in a red and black flannel. A service dog named Atlas watching everything with the kind of discipline that never sleeps. So I'll ask you straight, brotherhood style. When you get pushed into a corner, do you run or do you hold the line? That night, Ryan Caldwell stood his ground. Flannel on his back, pain in his left leg, Atlas at his side. And in front of him were Ethan Price and Gavin Davenport, men who thought power could bury truth the way money buries evidence. Sit down with me, brothers. Let the fire crackle. Hear the whole thing. There's a survival lesson in this one about the protector, about the cost of silence, and about what happens when the safe zone turns out to be a trap. Salt air over Savannah. Cold river air drifted in from the Savannah waterfront, carrying the smell of salt and iron. Inside the Mariner's Crown Hotel, chandeliers glowed warm, sealed off from the quiet unease gathering beneath the night. Ryan Caldwell stood near the service corridor, adjusting the strap of a tool pouch that sat awkwardly against his hip. At 40, he carried himself with the stillness of a man who had learned long ago not to waste movement. Tall, broad-shouldered, built solid from years of military training, he wore a red and black flannel shirt beneath a dark work jacket, faded jeans, and scuffed brown boots. A slight limp followed his left leg, subtle enough that most people missed it, but constant enough that Ryan never did. Beside him sat his German shepherd, 5 years old, black and tan coat, ears upright, amber eyes alert. The black harness across the dog's chest was clean and unmistakable. Service dog, do not pet. The dog's name was Atlas. Ryan had not chosen it for strength. He had chosen it for responsibility. Tonight, Ryan's job was simple. Light maintenance. Keep out of sight. Fix what broke and leave no trace behind. Engagement parties like this were not his world. They belonged to people who spoke in soft laughter and expensive confidence. People who never looked down unless they dropped something. Ryan preferred the edges. The Mariner's Crown was hosting the engagement celebration of Davenport and Company, a real estate empire with deep pockets and an even deeper need for appearances. 200 guests filled the ballroom. Crystal glasses clinked, cameras flashed. Power moved through the room like a private language. Atlas shifted beside Ryan, posture changing. Ryan noticed immediately. The dog's head lifted, ears angled forward. His gaze locked toward the far side of the ballroom, past a marble column near the balcony doors. Ryan followed that line of sight. A young woman stood alone. She was 28, maybe younger. Slim build, light brown hair pulled back low at her neck. Her dress was elegant but restrained, a soft neutral color chosen not to draw attention. She wore thin gloves despite the warmth of the room. Her shoulders were tense, as if she were bracing for something unseen. Her name, Ryan would learn later, was Claire Davenport. Even without knowing who she was, Ryan recognized the signs. The careful stillness, the way her eyes tracked the room instead of resting anywhere. The quiet effort of someone trying not to take up space. Atlas let out a soft huff through his nose, not a growl, not a bark. a warning, meant only for Ryan. Ryan shifted his weight, feeling the ache in his left leg flare and settle again. He had seen this look before, on civilians caught between expectations, on soldiers waiting for orders that felt wrong, on himself after the war, when silence had been louder than gunfire. He looked away, reminding himself of the rule he lived by now. Do your job, go home. Don't step into other people's storms. A burst of laughter erupted near the stage. Ryan turned back toward the service corridor, tightening a loose screw on a wall panel. Atlas stayed seated, gaze still fixed. Then he heard a voice behind him. Is he allowed to be here? Ryan turned. The speaker was a man in his early 30s, well-groomed, athletic in a way that came from gyms rather than labor. His suit was perfectly tailored, shoes polished to a mirror shine. His smile was easy, practiced. His eyes were not. This was Ethan Price. Ethan glanced down at Atlas, then back at Ryan, curiosity laced with something sharper. I mean the dog, he added lightly. This is a private event. Ryan kept his voice level. Service dog. Ethan chuckled, the sound thin. Of course. Seems everyone needs something these days. Ryan said nothing. He had learned that silence unsettled men like Ethan more than words ever could. Ethan's gaze flicked to Ryan's limp, then back up. Maintenance? He asked, already knowing the answer. Yes. Right. Ethan nodded, satisfied, and turned away as if the interaction had confirmed something important to him. Atlas's tail flicked once against the floor. Ryan rested a hand briefly on the dog's shoulder. Not to calm Atlas, to ground himself. Across the room, the young woman by the column shifted, pressing her back closer to the stone. A group of guests passed too near. Her breath caught. Ryan saw it clearly now. The tension in her jaw. The way her gloved fingers curled inward. Against his better judgment, Ryan took one step forward. Then he stopped. A man in his late 50s moved onto the stage, commanding attention without raising his voice. Silver hair, immaculate suit, presence sharpened by decades of authority. Gavin Davenport, CEO of Davenport and Company, and Claire's father. Ryan didn't know that yet, but he recognized power when he saw it. Atlas did not look at Gavin. Atlas was still watching Claire. Ryan exhaled slowly. He told himself he was imagining patterns that weren't his to read. He told himself that this night would pass like every other. But as Gavin Davenport lifted his glass to speak about family, standards, and perfection, Ryan felt something tighten in his chest. Not fear, recognition. Some nights didn't ask permission before they changed lives. And this one, Ryan sensed, had already begun. Words under crystal light. Warm air circled beneath the chandeliers, heavy with perfume and champagne. Outside, the river wind pressed softly against the glass, unheard by those inside the ballroom. Ryan Caldwell moved along the perimeter of the room, checking a loose railing near the balcony doors. The red and black flannel beneath his dark work jacket marked him as staff, as someone meant to blend into the background. Atlas walked close at his left side, the German shepherd's black harness steady against his broad chest, white letters clear. Service dog, do not pet. Ryan felt the familiar tension settle into his left leg as he knelt, tightened a bolt, then rose again. The limp never fully left him. It was a quiet reminder of other rooms, other nights, when crystal light had been replaced by dust and fire. Across the ballroom, Gavin Davenport's voice carried easily, smooth and confident. He spoke about legacy, about standards, about building something worthy of being passed down. The guests listened with the practiced attentiveness of people who knew when applause was expected. Ryan did not listen closely. He watched Claire. She stood near the edge of the crowd, hands folded at her waist, shoulders drawn inward. Every time someone laughed too loudly near her, she flinched. Atlas noticed it too. His ears shifted, tracking her movements, his body angled slightly in her direction. Ryan told himself again that it was none of his business. Then Ethan Price stepped into his path. Ethan moved like someone who had never been denied space. 33 years old, tall, fit, clean-cut. His suit was tailored to suggest effortlessness. His smile arrived first. His eyes followed later. "Busy night," Ethan said, glancing down at Ryan's tool pouch, then at Atlas. "Didn't realize we hired security with fur." Ryan straightened slowly. "Maintenance," he said. "Service dog." Ethan raised his hands in mock surrender. "Of course, my mistake." He leaned closer, lowering his voice just enough to make it personal. "You know, events like this are about image. Some things make people uncomfortable." Ryan met his gaze. He saw the calculation behind the smile, the need to assert, to place himself above someone else in the hierarchy that mattered so deeply to him. "My dog is trained," Ryan said. "He doesn't bother anyone." Ethan's eyes flicked again to Ryan's left leg. A quick assessment, a quiet judgment. "Neither do you," he said lightly. "That's the point." He stepped away before Ryan could respond, already turning his attention back to the guests who mattered more. Atlas exhaled sharply. Ryan rested his hand on the dog's harness, feeling the steady strength beneath his palm. He thought of the years after he left the teams, when he had learned how to swallow anger because it cost less than releasing it. He thought of how often people mistook restraint for weakness. Across the room, laughter rose again. A cluster of guests surrounded Claire now, drawn by proximity to the Davenport name. Ryan watched her posture tighten, her smile stretch thin. One woman leaned in too close. "You must be so excited," she said brightly. "A wedding like this changes everything." Claire nodded, though her eyes flicked toward the balcony doors as if measuring distance. Gavin Davenport approached then, glass in hand, his presence shifting the energy around him. At 59, he wore authority like a tailored suit. Every movement was deliberate. Every word assumed agreement. "Claire," he said, his tone pleasant but firm, "you shouldn't stand alone. People will talk." She swallowed. "I just needed air." "There's plenty of air here," Gavin replied, smiling for the guests. His hand settled briefly at her back, guiding her forward. The gesture looked affectionate. Ryan saw the tension in Claire's shoulders as she obeyed. Atlas let out a low, almost inaudible sound. Ryan stiffened. The dog was trained not to react without cause. This was not nothing. Ethan reappeared at Gavin's side, sliding easily into place. "Everything all right?" he asked, already knowing the answer he wanted. Gavin glanced toward Ryan and Atlas, his smile thinning. "We were just discussing comfort," he said. "This is a celebration after all, not a recovery center." A few guests chuckled politely. Ryan felt heat rise in his chest, sharp and unwelcome. He kept his expression neutral. He had survived worse words in worse places, but he saw Claire's face now, the way her eyes dropped, the way her fingers curled inward, nails pressing against her palms through the thin fabric of her gloves. Something shifted inside him. Not anger. Resolve. He took one step forward, then stopped himself. Not yet. He did not know the full shape of this situation. Acting without understanding had cost lives once. He would not repeat that mistake. Instead, he met Claire's eyes. For just a second, she looked up. Their gazes met across the room, and in that brief connection, Ryan let his face say what his words could not. You are not invisible. Claire's breath caught. It was a small thing, almost nothing. But Atlas sat straighter, as if recognizing the exchange. Gavin turned back to the stage, lifting his glass again. Ethan followed, already scanning the room for cameras. Ryan stepped back into the shadows, heart steady, mind alert. The night was tightening around them, drawing lines that could not be erased. And Ryan knew, with a certainty he trusted, that this was no longer just someone else's storm. The bruise beneath the glove. The ballroom felt warmer now, the air thick with voices and expectation. Outside the glass doors, the Savannah River moved slowly, dark and indifferent, reflecting lights that did not belong to it. Ryan Caldwell stood near the side corridor that led to the service stairs, his red and black flannel visible beneath the open work jacket. Atlas stayed close at his left, the German shepherd's black and tan coat catching the light, the harness text clear and steady. Service dog, do not pet. Ryan told himself he was only checking the railing again. That was the excuse. The truth sat heavier. Claire Davenport slipped away from the cluster around her father while Gavin was distracted by donors near the stage. She moved carefully, as if afraid of being noticed even while leaving. Ryan saw the moment she turned toward the balcony doors, her shoulders dropping a fraction, like someone finally reaching air. She did not look back to see if anyone followed. Ryan hesitated, then walked after her, keeping his pace unhurried. He did not want to startle her. Atlas matched him step for step, silent. They reached the quieter San Fu just beyond the ballroom. The music dulled here, becoming a distant pulse. A decorative piano sat unused near the wall, polished to a mirror shine. Claire stopped, one gloved hand braced lightly against the edge of the instrument. Her breathing was uneven. "I'm sorry," she said before Ryan could speak. Her voice was soft, strained. "I just needed a minute." "You don't need to apologize," Ryan replied. He kept his distance, hands relaxed at his sides. "I was checking the railing." She gave a small, humorless smile. "Of course." Atlas sat at Ryan's heel, posture alert but calm. Claire glanced at the dog, then back at Ryan. Her gaze lingered on the harness, on the certainty of its purpose. "He stays with you," she said. It was a statement, not a question. "Yes." "That must be reassuring," she swallowed. "To have something that doesn't pretend." Ryan understood what she meant, more than she knew. They stood in silence for a moment. Ryan sensed the fragile edge she was balancing on. He had seen it in men waiting to break, in civilians holding themselves together with habit and pride. "I don't want to marry him," Claire said suddenly. The words landed between them, raw and unprepared. Ryan did not react outwardly. Inside, something settled. This was the shape of it. She exhaled shakily, as if relieved to have said it aloud. "Everyone thinks this engagement is a fairy tale. My father says it's good for the company. Ethan says it's inevitable." Her fingers tightened. No one asks what it costs. Why don't you leave? Ryan asked gently. She laughed once, bitter. Because he won't let me. She hesitated, then slid one glove halfway off her right hand. A dark bruise marked her wrist, fingers clearly visible in the skin. Ryan's jaw tightened. He forced himself to breathe slowly. He has things, Claire continued. Videos. From years ago, when I wasn't… Well, he says if I walk away, he'll make sure everyone sees. Her voice dropped. My father would call it damage control. Atlas shifted, a low sound in his chest. Ryan lifted one hand slightly, not to command, but to steady. He had promised himself long ago he would not look away from this kind of truth. Before he could speak, footsteps echoed sharply. Ethan Price appeared in the doorway, his expression already twisted with irritation. He had removed his jacket, sleeves rolled just enough to suggest control. His eyes went first to Claire, then to Ryan. There you are, Ethan said, forcing a smile. You disappeared. Claire stiffened. I needed air. You could have said something. His hand closed around her bruised wrist, hard, possessive. Come on, people are starting to ask questions. Claire winced. Ryan stepped forward. Let go, he said. Ethan turned slowly, surprise flickering across his face before annoyance replaced it. This doesn't concern you. It does now. Ethan laughed under his breath. You're maintenance. You fix things. You don't give orders. Ryan did not raise his voice. He did not move closer. His presence alone shifted the space. Let go, he repeated. For a moment, Ethan considered pushing further. Then Atlas stood. Not aggressively, not barking. Just standing, broad and solid, eyes locked on Ethan's hand. Ethan released Claire abruptly, stepping back. This is unbelievable, he snapped. You're harassing my fiancée. Ryan shook his head once. I witnessed you hurting her. Ethan's eyes darted, already calculating. You saw what you wanted to see. Voices approached from the ballroom. Ethan straightened, composure snapping back into place like armor. This isn't over, he said quietly. To Claire, to Ryan, to the moment itself. He walked away toward the noise, leaving the air colder behind him. Claire's legs gave slightly. She caught herself on the piano. Ryan did not touch her. He stayed close enough that she would not feel alone. You don't have to decide anything right now, he said. But you're not imagining this. And you're not wrong. Claire looked at him, eyes shining with unshed tears. Why are you helping me? Ryan thought of nights when no one had helped. He thought of the cost of silence. Because someone should, he said simply. From the ballroom, Gavin Davenport's voice rose again, calling for attention. The night was moving forward, whether they were ready or not. And Ryan knew the next step would not stay quiet. Instant regret under glass and gold. The ballroom lights burned brighter now, reflecting off crystal and glass. Outside, the river wind rattled faintly against the windows, a reminder that pressure always finds a way in. Ryan Caldwell stood near the edge of the Sans Fou, red and black flannel visible beneath his open work jacket. His left leg ached, a dull, familiar pulse. Atlas stayed tight at his side, black and tan coat sleek, harness lettering clear. Service dog, do not pet. Claire Davenport hovered just behind him, pale but upright. The bruise beneath her glove felt heavier now that it had been seen. She could still feel Ethan's fingers, the claim in his grip. Fear had a memory. So did courage. Ethan returned first, louder this time, voice sharpened for an audience. He raised his hand slightly, signaling attention as guests began to drift closer. "This man," Ethan said, pointing at Ryan, "has been interfering with private matters, harassing my fiancée." Bringing an animal into restricted areas. Eyes turned, whispers followed. Ryan did not move. He had learned long ago that truth did not need volume. Gavin Davenport pushed through the gathering circle, silver hair immaculate, expression tight with irritation. At 59, he carried the certainty of a man used to obedience. His gaze flicked from Ryan to Atlas, then to Claire. "What is this?" Gavin asked. Claire opened her mouth, then stopped. Years of training pressed down on her chest. "Say nothing. Don't embarrass the family." Ethan answered for her. "Your staff crossed a line. He needs to be removed." Gavin nodded once, already decided. "This is a private engagement event," he said calmly. "Security." A woman stepped forward before the word could fully land. Mia Hart was in her mid-40s, composed, sharp-eyed, dressed in a tailored black blazer with a discreet hotel badge. She had the posture of someone who managed chaos for a living and never mistook volume for authority. "Mr. Davenport," Mia said evenly, "before we do that, I think we should clarify what happened." Gavin frowned. "This isn't necessary." "It is," Mia replied. She lifted a tablet from under her arm. "For liability reasons." She tapped the screen. The large display near the bar flickered to life. The room went quiet. Security footage filled the screen. Grainy, angled from the hallway camera, but unmistakable. Ethan's hand closing around Claire's wrist. Claire recoiling. Ryan stepping in. Atlas standing, controlled and alert. A murmur spread through the guests. Ethan's face drained of color. "This is out of context," he snapped. "You don't know what she said to provoke." Mia held up a hand. "There's more." She swiped. Audio from another camera played. Ethan's voice, low and sharp. "She belongs with me. Don't make this difficult." Claire closed her eyes. Instant regret rippled through the room, fast and irreversible. Gavin stared at the screen, jaw tightening. "Turn that off," he ordered. Before Mia could respond, another voice cut in. "I wouldn't." The man who spoke stood near the service entrance, shoulders slightly stooped, hands gripping a thick folder. He was in his early 50s, hair thinning, face lined with exhaustion and resolve. His clothes were plain, worn with care. This was Noah Briggs. Noah stepped forward, eyes fixed on Gavin. "I'm a structural safety engineer. Or, I was. I worked on Davenport & Company residential projects for 12 years. Gavin's eyes narrowed. "This is not the time." "It's exactly the time," Noah said. His voice shook, but he did not stop. "Because I just sent an email to the hotel's compliance system and to 3 oversight boards." Mia glanced at her tablet. Her expression shifted. Noah opened the folder, pages thick with printed emails, reports, signatures. "These are records of safety deviations, cut corners, suppressed inspections, approved reductions." He looked directly at Gavin. "Your approvals." The room felt smaller. Guests stepped back, phones rising, recording now without pretense. Ethan backed away slowly. "This is a setup," he said, too quickly. That man planned this. The veteran. Ryan finally spoke. I didn't plan this, he said, voice steady, carrying without effort. But I saw someone being hurt, and I didn't look away. Atlas remained still, eyes tracking movement, ready but restrained. Gavin's composure cracked. You have no idea what you're doing, he snapped. This company employs thousands. So did the buildings that failed inspections, Noah replied quietly. A uniformed officer appeared at the edge of the room, drawn by the noise and the calls already made. Another followed. Ethan turned, panic breaking through polish. Claire, he said, reaching for her again. She stepped back. No, she said. The word surprised her with its strength. The officers moved in. Ethan protested, loudly, desperately, but hands were on his arms now, guiding him away as questions were asked that would not be ignored. Gavin stood frozen, surrounded by glass and gold, watching the night turn against him. Ryan felt the ache in his leg flare again, sharper this time. He welcomed it. Pain meant presence. Claire stood beside him, breathing hard, but standing. Some storms did not pass quietly. Some arrived, exposed everything, and left nothing untouched. A quiet dance after the storm. Morning light spread over Savannah like a slow apology. The river breathed in and out beneath the fog, carrying away the echoes of a night that had refused to stay hidden. Ryan Caldwell stood outside the Mariner's Crown, red and black flannel visible beneath his worn jacket, the cool air settling into his left leg with a familiar ache. Atlas sat beside him, black and tan coat clean, harness snug across his chest. Service dog, do not pet. The hotel behind them was quieter now. No music, no champagne. Only the low murmur of staff resetting a space that would never feel the same again. Claire Davenport stepped through the revolving doors and paused when she saw Ryan. She looked different in daylight. No staged smile, no watchful crowd. Just a woman in a simple coat, hair loose, hands ungloved. Her wrist still bore the faint shadow of a bruise. I didn't know if you'd still be here, she said. Ryan shrugged lightly. I had a few things to finish. Atlas's tail thumped once against the pavement. They walked together toward the river, silence stretching comfortably between them. Claire breathed deeper with each step, as if the city itself was teaching her how. My father hasn't called, she said after a while. There was no bitterness in her voice, only clarity. The board has. Lawyers, too. Ryan nodded. He understood the sound of consequences unfolding without ceremony. I told them I'm stepping back, Claire continued. No interviews, no statements written for me. She looked at him. For the first time, that didn't feel like rebellion. It felt like honesty. Ryan smiled faintly. Those usually look the same from the outside. She laughed softly, surprised by the sound. You don't say much. I say what matters. They reached the riverwalk. The water moved steadily, indifferent to scandal, to power, to regret. Ryan leaned against the railing, shifting his weight carefully. Claire noticed the limp more clearly now. That leg, she said gently. You never mentioned it. It never asked to be mentioned. She considered that. Last night, she said, you stood there like nothing could push you back, even when everyone was looking at you like you didn't belong. Ryan's gaze stayed on the water. I've been looked at that way before. Claire nodded. I have too. I just didn't know it until now. They stood quietly. Atlas lay down at Ryan's feet, watchful but at ease. Claire broke the silence. "I don't want to disappear again," she said. "I don't want my life to be a reaction to what they did." Ryan turned to her then, expression open. "Then don't let it be." "I don't know what comes next." "That's okay," he said. "You're allowed to not know." She smiled at that, smaller but steadier. Across town, consequences continued their work. Ethan Price was formally charged before noon. Gavin Davenport released a statement that said very little and admitted even less. The markets reacted faster than apologies ever did. Ryan heard none of it directly. He didn't check his phone. He had learned that healing rarely arrived through headlines. Claire did receive a call. She stepped aside to take it, her posture calm, voice measured. When she returned, something had shifted again. "That was Mia Hart," she said. "She offered to connect me with support services, not as Davenport's daughter, as myself." Ryan nodded once. "She's good at her job." "Yes," Claire said. "And so are you, even if that's not what your title says." They walked back toward the hotel. Near the entrance, music drifted from an open side door. A pianist, early morning staff, playing softly while cleaning crews worked. Claire slowed. "Would it be strange," she asked, "to dance?" Ryan raised an eyebrow. "Right here?" She looked down, then back up, meeting his eyes. "I think I'd regret it if I didn't ask." Ryan hesitated only a moment. He glanced down at Atlas. The dog remained still, approving in his own way. "All right," Ryan said. They stepped onto the smooth stone near the door. No crowd, no cameras. Just the quiet rhythm of a song meant for no one in particular. Ryan moved carefully, aware of his leg, of his balance. Claire followed, light at first, then more sure. There was no performance here, only presence. For the first time since the night before, Claire felt her body relax without fear of being corrected. "This isn't perfect," she said softly. Ryan smiled. "Good." She laughed, and the sound carried easily into the morning. When the music ended, they did not rush apart. Whatever this was, it was not an ending. It was a beginning that didn't need permission. Sometimes the miracle does not arrive with thunder or light from the sky. Sometimes it comes quietly, in the moment someone chooses not to look away. Faith is not always about believing that pain will disappear. It is about trusting that God sees what others ignore, and that truth, when it is finally spoken, has the power to set hearts free. In everyday life, we all stand at small crossroads. We choose whether to stay silent or to stand beside someone who is hurting. We choose whether to protect appearances or to protect what is right. And often, the smallest act of courage becomes the seed of the greatest change. This story reminds us that no scar is wasted in God's plan. What the world tries to shame, He can transform into strength. What was meant to silence you, He can use to give you a voice. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who may need hope today. Leave a comment and tell us what part stayed with you the most. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories of faith, justice, and quiet courage. May God bless you, guide your steps, and remind you that you are never unseen.